Hey everybody, thanks for watching. I have a really exciting video today because I've gone through all of Be Better Golf. Oh, that actually missed. What the hell? Hey everybody, thanks for watching. I have a really exciting video because I went through all of Be Better Golf, me and my nephew Jack went through all of Be Better Golf and all of the different putting tips that have been on Be Better Golf throughout the, I don't know, 7 or 8 years or whatever that Be Better Golf has been going on. And we picked out what I think are the 5 best tips for putting that have ever been on Be Better Golf, and we're all gonna put it together in this one video. So I think this one video is gonna really help people think of putting in a different way. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I just came out with a new book called Elite Putting. It's a Be Better Golf book that I did with Phil Reed, who is an author. I was working with him on his putting for like a couple months, and Phil said to me, well, you really ought to put this into a book. And he's written like 10 books. He was the biographer for Mike Austin. You might remember him because he's been on the channel before. Phil and I have been working really hard on Elite Putting, and it's on the Amazon store now, so you can check that out. But what I wanted to show you, the very first putting tip coming up, is the most watched video on Be Better Golf. It has almost 1.5 million views. And Mike Malaska in this video is going to talk about using your eyes in the putting stroke and how your eyes and where you set your eyes can really influence your putting stroke. So take it away, Mike.
Well, in my opinion, the most important part of putting is your ability to see line correctly. Your ability to see line overrides what your stroke does or doesn't do. Because so your eyes perceive, your brain receives, your body reacts. So what your eyes see is the task or the target line better be the right one, which most people have never practiced it. The line they see isn't right, that's what's happened to me my whole career. They fixed me, supposedly, well intended, but where they moved me made line not look right. So then under pressure, I wouldn't trust what I was looking at. So I would, you get right to the ball and I call it the vomit zone.
So the thing that I've heard a lot is that your eyes should be directly over the line.
Wrong.
True or false? What do you think about that?
Couldn't be worse. That's going to be in one of my top 10 worst fundamentals in the history of golf. Get your eyes directly over the line that you're putting on.
Yeah, right.
Hardly anybody on tour is there. They're anywhere from a 1/4 inch to 9 inches inside the line, and anywhere from a 1/2 inch to 9 inches to the left, to the right of the ball. The center of that ball goes over that, the center of that, and that's a straight putt. The ball's going in the hole.
Yeah, I had no choice.
So that is a perfect secondary target. Now the problem, when I come up here and I set my eyes like over that line, and I look at that ball and I look at that spot, it looks like if the ball hit that spot, it looks like I would go right about here. Where are my eyes now?
Yeah, you're considerably on the inside and back here.
Okay, so this is where I stood when I was a kid. Well, when I stand here, all of a sudden, that ball going over that spot looks like it's in line with the hole. But this, as soon as I moved away from the ball and I allowed myself to put my eyes where it looked right for me and putt from there, I started making putts.
This next tip comes from Tim Yelverton. Tim Yelverton is a pro in Mississippi that works specifically on short game and putting. So everything 30 yards and in, only, specifically. And he works with a lot of guys on the PGA Tour. I've had him on the channel a lot. And Tim and I collaborated on this thing called the Be Better Golf putting system. And that's what this next tip comes from that. Tim is just really, really solid and straightforward in what he says. And you're gonna really enjoy this from the Be Better Golf putting system because he's talking about process and routine, and really starts talking about this concept of having a trigger that sets this all off. So you're gonna like it. So this is my trigger is here is 1, 2. Now putting it down, there's my trigger. All right.
In the routine. Now we'll talk about it in just a second, the pre-shot routine versus the routine.
Okay.
And there's a trigger, right, that kind of draws a pretty deep line in the sand that separates the pre-shot versus the routine. So the pre-shot is variable. You can do anything you want to do. The whole purpose of the pre-shot routine is to get committed to the shot that you're about to hit.
Get a really clear idea.
Right, it's anticipating the putt. It's taking an inventory of everything going on, uphill, downhill, left to right, so on and so forth. What's the grain doing, wind, you name it, right? So that's going to be variable, and there really are no rules for that, in the sense that whatever you need to do to get more committed, put it in there. Now, once the routine starts, and you have that trigger that signals the start of the routine, then once the routine is started,
I know what I'm going to do. Here I go.
Here you go, and all decisions are final, and it's boom, 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 go. Right,
Yeah.
so it is very defined, it's very consistent, it is not variable at all. Players, should always have a trigger that says, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
For me, it's me putting the hand on my left hip.
Okay.
For some players, it's tapping the putter. Some players, it can be pulling the sleeve. And it doesn't really matter what it is, you just need to define it and then repeat it, okay?
Yep. This is me starting my routine.
That's right.
This is the thing that happens every time I putt.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So if I were hitting this putt on the golf course,
Yeah.
then I would go ahead and read it. I maybe, I use aim point, so I would feel the tilt of the putt. To save time, this putt here is pretty straight, so there's not a whole lot going on. Once I have made my final decision that, okay, I'm gonna play this putt straight in, then I'll start walking in. Now, I still haven't technically started my routine. My routine's gonna start when I go right here. So that's my trigger. And then I always take 2 looks. The first look, the whole purpose of that first look is to square my body to the target line, okay?
Yeah.
And then my second look is to square the putter face.
Okay.
So in your routine, if you're doing it, it should have a purpose. If you're doing something without a purpose, take it out. So because you want it to be very defined, and it really shouldn't be that long.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and run a full routine here.
Yeah, let's do it.
You'll see my trigger, hand on the left hip. That starts it. I'll take 2 looks, and then I'll hit the putt. Now, some players like to kind of talk through their routine, and what that does is it sort of keeps them in cadence.
Yeah,
So when
like
you were
you're
talking about
singing
with
a song
Tiger, that's
almost.
right. When you were talking about Tiger's time always being 12 seconds, if you're kind of saying 1, 2, 3, some people like to count. I say look, go.
Yeah.
That's just where you start working with your student or your player, and you're just like, okay, let's figure out what works best for you. But you want it to be defined. You want to do the same thing over and over, and everything in it needs to have a purpose. Okay. So I'm gonna walk in and I'm gonna run my routine and hit this putt.
Great putt.
Okay, so all I did there, as you'll see, that was my trigger. Then the first look was to square the body. Then I moved the putter behind it. The second look was to square the face, and then I hit it. And inside my head, I was sitting here going, if that starts, and then it's look, go.
Thing with putting is like a knife. You have to keep it sharp. Off of it for too long, or it'll start getting dull. So. Okay, one of my favorite things I ever heard about putting came from Bruce REARICK here, where he talks about if you go to a really good putter and you ask them what they do, they can talk about it for like 2 hours and then really define it down to like a granular level called know thyself. So you should really have an idea and be able to write it down what exactly you like to do in your putting and in your putting stroke and everything. So for me, I mean, I'm mostly a process person, but in the actual stroke, I like to drive it with a little bit of shoulder glide and right hand hit, right hand swing. And there actually is just a tiny bit of hit at the very, very bottom of it. So for me, I don't like to have a frozen wrist. I like that wrist to kind of come alive. And I could talk for a really long time about all the things that I do and why I like to do them, but this is kind of my, that's kind of how I do it. But for you, what this drill would be is like take some pieces of paper and write down, hey, what do I like? And you can write it all down, and you might have to go out to the putting green, like I've seen a lot of golfers do, and bring a little notebook with you and you're like, okay, how does this feel? Like, and really think, put some thought behind what do you like to do, because lots of different things can work, but doing lots of different things all the time, that doesn't work. You have to do what you do consistently.
We think that forced postures don't work. What happens is you get them, all right, this is the ideal model posture, right, for putting. I don't know what that is, but I know guys have one. They have a preference. The problem is that if it doesn't match me or match you or match the other person, then you're going to constantly fight that along with trying to swing the putt. And they say, well, repetition, you'll do it over and over again, you'll learn it. No, you'll continually go back to where your body wants to go. There's a story years ago of a famous tour player that was on a putting aid that forced him to swing the putter in a certain manner. He did it for about 2.5 hours and then came over and got on Putt Lab, and the first putt was nowhere near what he was doing when he was practicing. So it didn't even carry over to the first putt after he left the aid.
Yeah.
So after we saw that, we realized that the body, your body, and how you stand over it and how you move, that's what's going to dictate what your stroke looks like, not what you're trying to do, right?
So if you're working on putting and you're finding something that's working, like in practice, right? How do you make and you're making more putts with it? How do you make it so that it's sticky and it actually translates to when you're on the course or when you're in competition?
Yeah, we call it defining the stroke. Guys that are really good, when you ask them, how do you swing the putter? They'll stand there for 2 hours and tell you how they do it. They know exactly what they're doing, right? They know exactly how it works. Tiger, exactly how that right hand works. Exactly. Dave Stockton, exactly how my left hand worked and how I supply the power and all that. And that's the basis for our instruction, is helping players identify their strokes. The guys that we've worked with that are on the tour that are lost, I call it. We go back and we just identify, what do I do that makes me good? I stand here with an open stance with a strong left hand grip and I take it back with my right arm. That kind of definition then helps you repeat. And what happens is a player will miss a putt or miss one that's crucial and decide that method that he was working on doesn't work, so he starts over. And so for the average player, how many times have you started over on your putting stroke?
Yeah.
Because I had a result that didn't pay out. And what we're saying is, no, you probably didn't miss it because of your strategy. There's a million reasons you could have missed it. What you got to do is you got to stick with it. You got to continue to get better at what you do. That's what made all the great putters. That's what made them great, is they just kept doing what they do.
Bruce was really, really concentrated on two things. The first thing he said is that people really have to build up the skill of hitting the putter in the center of the face. So you're going to hear Bruce talk about that right here. Okay, so you just mentioned a player that was on the DP World Tour. You've worked with PGA Tour players as well, Champions Tour, like amateurs, regular golfers, I assume, as well.
Sure.
So what, in your estimation, what is the real skill that separates the different levels of putter?
Tiger Woods mentioned it. Ben Crenshaw mentioned it. All the great putters hit the ball in the sweet spot every time.
Wow.
So they repeat the stroke. They find a ball position and a stroke where they can just hit it solid. They don't even care where it went. They just found a way to hit it solid, right? And then they learned how to move that mechanism, hitting it solid, to adapt to what they see in the read. What the biggest mistake that I see in amateurs is they will practice speed control drills mishitting the putt. I get, Bruce, what's the best drill for distance control?
Yeah.
The best drill for distance control is hitting it in the middle of the putt. Because once you get a consistent strike, you can adapt. You know how to adapt, but you can't play random. You can't play, am I going to hit this on the toe? Am I going to hit this in the bottom of the putter, the most common?
You want to know, how do we get to where we can control speed?
Yeah.
You have to know that the speed in the putter head's getting into the ball. So you got to first learn and practice making the ball roll. If you can't do that, I don't care how much you practice, you're never going to be able to control speed.
What do you think is the best way to start developing sweet spot control? It's such a great point, because you see teachers and people with face spray and impact tape, but you never, on full shots, but you never really hear about this putting.
The feel, if you don't have a putter that masks the feel, like we've seen over the years, we've had guys that use just bare minimum blades just to practice with, just so they can, where am I hitting it on the face? But yeah, mark a spot, but just feel. You know what solid feels like. Just don't worry about practicing to a hole or Bruce, I made 1,000 in a row. Don't worry about that. Can you just hit it in the middle of the face? And then I'll ask, where did you hit that? Well, I felt like it was on the toe.
There's no point in doing a distance control drill if sometimes you're a little in the toe and sometimes you're very in the heel.
Yeah, what if, Brendan, let's say you practiced for a whole day, practiced on your speed control, had it figured out. Well, let's say in that drill, you were catching it low with the putter low on, ball low on putter face.
Sure.
Like this. Okay. So you've basically sculled it all day.
Yeah.
And the first putt you hit on the first hole, you flush it.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from? You know, all of a
Right.
sudden that ball goes 25 feet past the hole and you got no idea what happened. And it could have been the ground shifted your balance or whatever it was. I'll hear that a lot. Bruce has been really working hard on my speed control. They go into a tournament, it was off. And they want to blame the greens or they want to blame the conditions. Could be, but it also could be that you're just not hitting, you were practicing random. I saw Tiger Woods back in the day when he was working with Hank Haney. I saw a Putt Lab report, Tiger Woods, 1,000 different examples, one dot on the putt. He hit every putt for 1,000 reps exactly in the same spot.
So Bruce talks a lot about hitting the putter and building the skill of hitting the ball in the center of the putter, really flushing it. The same way you would work on flushing your driver, you would do that with your putter as well. Okay, so one tip that I have for that goes along with what Bruce was saying, super simple drill. Get a lot of balls, like almost like a full bucket of balls, and put them down on the green, like a ton, like more than this. Like imagine just like a pile of balls, okay? And then set out a little gate, like a wide gate, not really that narrow or anything. And all you're gonna do is just rake the balls over and hit them through the gate at good speed and start to develop your sense for whether you're flushing it out of the center or not. It's almost like, I call it like basically the driving range drill. This is like you're hitting putts like almost as if you're on the driving range, and hit quite a few of them, so you can tell that was really flushed. Hit quite a few of them with your eyes closed. In addition to that, hit some of them intentionally off the toe or off the heel, just to get the sense for the feeling of what that is. And you can use this with a metronome too, and see some distances. But basically, you're really just trying to get the sense of what does center contact feel like, and then what do you have to do to get center contact. For the most part, there's a lot of different things. We put them all in Elite Putting, the Be Better Golf book. The number one thing I could say is from the belly button down, be very, very quiet, very stable. Yeah, I flushed that. The next tip comes from David Orr, and I got to talk to David Orr, who is one of probably the top putting coach in America. And David talks about variability here. And what that means is that the reason that PGA Tour players, or one of the reasons the PGA Tour players get better and better and better, even like as their careers go on, is because every week they're on a different surface. There's different things to think about. I mean, imagine the huge difference between playing at like Augusta National and then playing at like Pebble Beach. All the huge differences they have to go through. And that variability actually makes a more robust and stronger putting game. He's going to talk about that here.
People always talk about learning to putt by instincts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I took a 4-year-old out to the putting green, their instincts are not trained to know that this putt's going right to left or left to right. So you can't use the instincts until they're trained.
Yeah, the instincts have to be grown.
Yeah, developed, exactly. So then you can sit there and go, well, my gut feels like it's going right to left. Well, I have to have some experiences. And then I think one of the reasons why tour players are so good is they're changing venue every week. That makes sense. So they might be on Bermuda greens for a week or two, and then they're on bent greens for a couple weeks. They might be on, like Hilton Head was really flat. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't more than maybe like a 1 or 1.5% slope. So they're very flat. And then all of a sudden you go, the week before you had Augusta and you got lots of movement, lots of slope, green, and the whole locations are at 2.5, but the green conditions at Augusta are so good. So you know, the box score doesn't tell you that. The box
Right.
score doesn't tell you how difficult the putts were, how difficult the hole locations were, the conditions of the green.
All right, this next step actually is from me. So in there, you're gonna see about how you can use your eyes specifically in making more short putts. Like they call it like the golden 8 feet. So you're basically 8 feet and in. That's really where you can start jacking up your stats to improve your handicap, like by a lot. And so we heard Mike MALASKA talk about, like if I was putting right at you, heard Mike MALASKA talk about your eyes set so that the line looks straight. But then like on these shorter putts, what you wanna do is really use your eyes up and down the line. So you're gonna hear me talk about this a little bit, but what it is it's kind of like the 1,000 putt technique, where you're feeling like you're not just making one putt, but you're making this putt and this putt and this putt and this putt all the way along the line, like little dominoes that you're knocking over. You're gonna hear that now. The next part of this I wanted to talk about is eye discipline. So just look at my eyes. And when you're looking at the line, especially on short putts, so here I got 2 different 3-foot putts, but difficult ones, breakers. So this is, you know, the break is, here's a straight putt, so that's on either side of the break completely. So 2 different breaker putts. And I'm gonna do this bow tie thing where you put 2 balls up here, 3 feet, and then 2 balls on the other side. Rather than like doing like a 4 corners thing where you have the downhill, the uphill, 2 sides. Do the bow tie thing. I think that you'll get better use out of your time. But when you're standing over there, you have to be super disciplined about where your eyes look. Once you've decided the line, and you kind of do that behind the ball, you know, where you decided the line. Once you're over the ball, don't just look ball, hole, ball, hole, ball, hole. You got to look ball and then all the way up the line and all the way down the line to the ball and to the cup, back and forth, and see, because your putt, to make a putt, you've got to make like 1,000 putts along the way before it goes into the cup. And if it gets off of that path, just like, you know, when we see the aim point thing on TV, it's your chances get really small of getting into that final cup. I want you to, as I'm going to hit this putt, which is a tough putt, I'm going to put the phone down on the ground. And this is what I want you to think of. When you're here and you're over these short putts, there's 2 things I think you should think about. Eye discipline, because you've already chose the line that it's gonna go. So you're gonna think eye discipline, and then think hit it in the center of the putter. That seems to make the most putts. Watch my eyes. And I can't let it get distracted. I'm gonna go right there. You're making like 1,000 putts along the way. I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, it's hard enough to make one putt. Now I got to make 1,000. It's actually easier to make 1,000 than it is just to make a single putt. All right, perfect. Okay, this next tip is also from me as well. And it's just my favorite thing that I think everybody needs to be doing. You're going to hear a lot about consistency and consistent practice and a little bit different of an idea about golf training coming up in the channel. But it all stemmed from the yardstick drill. And really what this is trying to convince you to be super consistent in doing the yardstick drill as the entire foundation and basis of your putting game. The entire thing. The foundation and the basis of it is being super consistent with doing the yardstick drill, so that when you come up and you're hitting this putt, and let's say this is to break 80 for the first time, or to break par for the first time, or, you know, $40, whatever it is, when you're getting up here, you are then relying on the routine and the process that you built in doing the yardstick drill. And you can kind of visualize that the yardstick is there, and just roll it down and you'll never miss. I mean, you might miss, but if that process is there, like, it just becomes inevitable. In putting, if you could make a really good stroke that goes from here to here, you could be like one of the best putters in the world. But what does that take? Because with putting, if you miss by an inch, that's like missing by a mile. So it really has to be precise. It's not that big of a motion, but the motion that you make has to be really precise. With putting, so this is called the 5-week yardstick challenge. you get a yardstick. So this yardstick you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever. I'll put a link in the description. You can get it on Amazon too. It's the metal kind, and it's got the little hole in it here. There's going to be no real technical instruction here. I got to convince you that you need to be like consistently putting every day. So what the challenge is you got to get this thing rolling where it falls off the end of that. Just got to get it rolling off the end. And I'll tell you this, it is way tougher than it looks. There you go. And the thing that you notice is that a pre-shot routine starts to develop, where if you really want to make a high score and be super consistent about getting it started online, which is what this is doing, 3-3, then you'll start to notice that a routine develops. So I've tried it before where you try to do Tiger Woods' routine, or you try to do some other famous golfer's routine and do their amount of strokes and everything else like that. If you do enough putts, your own personal routine will start to develop, and it will be the routine where if you're just mimicking somebody else's, or if you're just doing it forced, where you're trying to do a routine, that doesn't really work. It has to be something like that is organically grown from all the work that you've put in. If you just start doing it, it might help a little bit, but it won't actually hit it. And then once you do this for a long time, you start to get a weird sense that you're not hitting the putt with your stroke. 5-5. That's 5-5. So what I mean is you start to feel like it's not the stroke that's hitting the putt, or it's not even the putter that's hitting the putt. It feels like the entire routine, everything from right here all the way through, is the thing that's hitting the putt. Okay, so the book is called Elite Putting. It is in the description of this video. You can get it on Kindle or on your iPad or any digital source, and the physical book will be coming out really soon. It might be available already. It probably is going to be available already. So you can check it out for Father's Day or anything like that. Anybody you know that wants to get better at putting and is not sure where to start, or if you feel like you've really plateaued and you just haven't gotten better, I think this is a great way that I've put together like all the different things that I've learned myself and then learned from all these great instructors throughout the country and the world about putting, and can really make somebody sharp. The cool thing that I think about putting is that if you put the right amount of focus and time and consistency into your putting, like anybody can be really good at it. And once you're really good at it, it frees up the whole rest of your game. You don't have to be so perfect on the iron shots, or you don't have to worry so much if you hit another bad shot somewhere else, because you know, like Bob Rotella said in his book, I love to putt, and every chance I walk on the green is awesome, because this is really where I excel. And you start to have like a ton of fun every time you're stepping on the green. So I really appreciate the support. It's something new that I'm trying, and it's something that we want to do with different coaches. We're starting this thing called Be Better Golf Press, where we're going to go around to different coaches and get their thoughts that have always been scattered in different places and get them condensed into like a solid book form, because people do learn in different ways, and I think people a lot of times absorb things better reading it and then kind of connecting that to the videos that they've seen and other things, and will really internalize it and get them to make big strides. Thanks for watching, everybody. Click the subscribe button. A lot more stuff coming out soon.